Hello and welcome everybody to episode 73 of Comic DNA, X Edition whatever. We kind of gave that up in the last episode.
It's a lost cause.
My good friend Alex Harner and I, Aaron Walther, are continuing our discussion of the classic Stan Lee and Jack Kirby X-Men issues. This time, we're finishing our series with issues 17 and 18, the final issues that Jack Kirby worked on as layout artist. I'm almost kind of surprised that it's been 18 issues, Alex. I
In what way?
Well, I think I promised you 12 when we started, and here we are, like 6 extra issues.
You did, because we got into some technicalities about
Yeah.
drawing versus layouts, and we decided to just go safe and go everything with Kirby's name on it.
Yes. And I thought it was important, too, because the previous issues that we read, 14, 15, and 16, which Kirby didn't draw, but he still did the layouts for, which means he also still technically wrote. I think they were three of the best, well, maybe not necessarily three of the best issues, but one of the best stories of this whole X-Men, this whole era of the X-Men. The Sentinels, I think.
The Sentinels, yeah.
Yeah, I think hands down it's one of the best stories. If not maybe the most important story of all these issues. We'll save that for a discussion later.
That's a good quandary.
That's a good quandary, yeah. We'll save that for later. Maybe we'll do like I'm just spitballing here, but maybe we'll do kind of like a afterthought episode where we just kind of, after we reviewed all
the retrospective.
Yeah, retrospective.
Sure.
Thank you. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I like that idea.
We'll talk about that. Yeah, maybe we'll do that next. But in the meantime, now we're going to talk about issues 17 and 18. And I believe it's my turn to do the synopsis, the plot synopsis. So I'm just going to...
That sounds fair, because the last one was really long.
The last one was long.
I did do that one, didn't I?
You had to,
because it was three
issues, yeah.
and I had to kind of scroll through the pages to remember what happened, because it was a lot.
To be fair, as we discussed in the previous episode, there was a lot of filler, just like action fighting filler in those issues that you almost glossed over like a whole issue's worth of pages.
Some fighting happened.
Yeah, and then they fight, and then they get free, and then they get captured, and then they fight some more. But
more or less.
So I'll just launch into it here, if you don't mind.
Please.
So issue 17 starts almost directly where the previous issue leaves off. And we talked about this in the past episode. We've gotten into this series now. At this point, the X-Men issues are monthly. I think it might have been with issue 12 or 13.
Okay.
They started becoming monthly, whereas previously they were bi-monthly, every other month. So, like, the book has been around for 2 years, but it only did like 12 issues.
Okay.
And now we're at the point where it's a monthly book now. It also, this whole switching to monthly lines up with when they bring in a new artist and start phasing Kirby out. Because Kirby really couldn't afford, he didn't have the time to do multiple books monthly. I mean, the dude was a workhorse. Like, he was doing Fantastic Four monthly, and then he was also doing X-Men and Avengers, like, alternately, I believe.
Okay.
That's kind of how he was doing it.
So he was basically doing 2 books a month?
Basically.
Was it always Fantastic Four and then an additional book?
Yeah, it was
on an alternating schedule?
I think, I mean, I don't know the specifics, but I think it's safe to say that generally that's probably how it shook out. Like, he was always doing Fantastic Four and then also another book in a month.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so at this point, Marvel Comics is doing very well for itself. And, Fantastic Four is a runaway success, and Spider-Man, of course, is really huge. That has nothing to do with Kirby specifically. I'm not going to get into the minutia of whether or not Kirby created Spider-Man. That's a different podcast. But he's not drawing the book. That's Steve Ditko.
Gotcha.
Excuse me. But, Marvel is doing very well for itself, so they can afford to start hiring more artists to do more monthly books. And so that's why we have these last couple of X-Men issues, starting with 12, the Juggernaut story, 12 and 13, and then the Sentinel story, which is 14, 15, and 16, are not actually drawn by Kirby. They're drawn by freelance artists working off of Kirby's layouts.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of have discussed in previous issues about how we think that ultimately that kind of hurts the art, but that really has nothing to do with the synopsis that I'm trying to do here.
No worries. It's essential backstory.
Yes, essential backstory.
Maybe.
Which is kind of how this issue starts off, because it starts off with like the aftermath of the previous issue where they fought the Sentinels, and the X-Men are all injured, and the military is there, and also paramedics are there because they're taking care of Beast because he like sprained a toe or something.
Right.
and Professor X is there, and basically there's kind of this like it's almost like there's technically not media there, but there's a lot of civilians, and so Professor X is very concerned about protecting his identity as the leader of the X-Men. And there's a lot of back and forth of like, oh, we have to take the X-Men to the hospital, but Professor X can't let anybody know that he's secretly with them, so he's kind of contriving situations where he's like maybe one of the X-Men would be nice enough to drive me back to my school. Like, there's some silly.
More than once he says that.
Twice. Yeah, there's at least 2 times where he says that, and it's
like, no, I really want them to drive me back to my school.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of heavy-handed. But anyway, really, the long and the short of it is, we end up in the hospital where Iceman he's in critical condition, and
which is weird because he doesn't start out that way.
Right. He's just standing there, like in the opening, the splash page. Like, they're just checking his pulse. And they can't read his pulse. And then it's like, there's a page of Professor X trying to contrive a situation where they get back to the mansion, and then we cut to the hospital, and Iceman's in critical condition. And it's just sort of, stated. Like, it's not really explained. Like, he blacked out in the ambulance, and they can't bring him back to consciousness. Whizzle wazzle woozle.
Right.
So,
something happened. Yeah.
And the
it was
poor
worse than they thought.
And the poor doctor can't figure out how to help him because he's a mutant, and he's like a huge block of living ice, so they don't know how to.
Right.
I mean, we'll talk about that more maybe later, but I appreciate the kind of like fun lip service paid to the idea that they're mutants, so that the human doctors have no idea how to deal with them, because how do you how do you deal with
no
somebody?
Scientific precedent.
Exactly, yeah, it's not scientific. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
So, gosh, they spent a lot of time at the hospital. Angel. Okay, I'm gonna get back on track here. So Angel calls the school and gets their messages, their phone messages, and finds out that his parents are on their way to the school. So he gets really concerned that they're going to discover that the school is empty and that they're really the X-Men and they're all in the hospital. So Professor X sends Angel to the school, and he to kind of greet his parents and kind of run interference while the rest of them deal with the problems of Iceman at the hospital. But there's some kind of evil, shadowy menace already at the school.
There's something bad going down.
And all he can talk about is his overwhelming power and how he's going to destroy the X-Men.
Who would ever want to do such a thing?
Who could do such a thing?
Who could be so obsessed with their own power?
Also, he's got purple gloves.
But
anyway, that's really
probably the Vanisher.
He's probably the Vanisher, right? I mean, why not?
Why not?
So Angel shows up at the mansion. He's gonna kind of poke around inside and make sure everything's cool before he greets his parents. But then he gets attacked by mysterious forces. What is it? There's like a suit of armor like on display.
A metal suit of armor.
And the metal axe goes flying out of its hand and smashes. It misses Angel. He's able to avoid it because he's been training in the danger room, and And then my favorite scene, I'm gonna go ahead and just say this. I can't pinpoint a favorite panel, but this is my favorite scene of the 2 issues. Is when Angel flies into a mirror like a freaking bird.
Classic.
Oh, it's beautiful. This mysterious force set a trap for him, and there's a mirror in the hallway, and Angel couldn't tell that it was a mirror, and he flew right into it and knocked himself out.
What a dummy.
Oh, bird brain.
But
So then we cut back to the hospital, and the doctor wants to examine Cyclops' eyes, of course, because everybody wants to touch Cyclops' eyes for some reason. And we gloss over that scene. Cyclops talks to Professor X. Professor X is worried about stuff. Professor X and Cyclops go back to the mansion. Cerebro is going crazy because it only goes, it alerts whenever there's danger nearby. So it's beeping like crazy, and then they get attacked by an unseen force. They get knocked out. I'm glossing over this. Cyclops attacks nothing and gets knocked out by nothing. We don't see anything. It's some mysterious force. I can't imagine what it is.
This guy's just super sneaky. We see some purple gloves again.
We keep seeing the purple gloves. And we do know, like, in continuity, there was one villain previously that did defeat Cyclops by just punching his lights out and just, like, knocking him head over heels, if you recall. So he does.
That's true. This is
the second time that Cyclops. It's no mutant powers. He just punches him.
He just gets totally clocked by this villain more than once.
More than once. And then we cut back to the hospital, and Marvel Girl and Beast are worried because they've not heard anything from Professor X or Cyclops. It's not like them to just leave, without telling them where they're going, which, oddly enough, is what they did. They did just leave without telling them what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But then, they couldn't find them, so they decide to go back to the school. And they get to the school, and they get also beaten up by some unseen force that set some traps for them. Really weird
Some
traps.
really elaborate traps.
Yeah, really elaborate.
Get back to that.
Yeah, we will. It's like this frictionless hallway that's made out of crystal or something. I don't know.
I don't even know.
Yeah, and then they both get knocked out by this character. He uses sleeping gas on Marvel Girl. I guess he's too much of a gentleman to punch a lady. Not like Cyclops.
Yes, right.
He'll just knock his block off. But, Marvel Girl, sleep gas. That's good enough.
Yeah.
And, gosh, we're still back. Oh, yeah, so we cut back to the hospital because Iceman is still in critical condition. And then we cut back to this absurd scene at the mansion where this mysterious...
It's truly absurd.
This mysterious character decides he's going to place all of the unconscious X-Men in a giant metal steel gondola and set them afloat in the air where this balloon, this helium balloon, it doesn't say what it is, but it's like a hot air balloon.
It's like a weather balloon.
It's like a weather balloon or something, and it's going to take them up to 100,000 feet in the air, where presumably they will die because their oxygen will run out.
Suffocate and die.
Take that, X-Men.
What an outrageous plan.
It's perfect. It's foolproof. What could go wrong?
I cannot imagine.
And then Warren's parents do eventually show up finally, and they knock. They don't knock on the door. They ring the doorbell, and the door is opened, and the final page reveals who could we imagine to be there, other than Magneto.
The mighty Magneto. Or Magneto if you're Aaron, and you like the old ways.
Who am I? I am power. Men call me Magneto. Dun dun dun.
How did he get off that planet?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe we'll find out in the next issue.
All right.
So issue 18.
Continue.
I am going to speed the crap through this issue because I took way too long going on the back and forth of that previous issue. So, issue 18 opens and the stupid X-Men are in the they're all unconscious in the gondola, floating in the stratosphere, which Professor X is with them. It wasn't clear in the last issue whether or not Professor X was there, but I guess it could have been assumed.
Yeah, maybe it was already loaded up.
Yeah, but so Professor X, they're all in this steel gondola, and there's. I'm only bringing this up because it's a weird scene. Magneto decides he's gonna, in a display of his power, he's gonna destroy the X Mansion, and he just rips it from its foundation and lifts it in the air. And then, in a quick thought, decides no. He changes his mind. He has a better idea. He's gonna put it back where it was and use it as his headquarters because that is the ultimate irony.
What an inefficient use of storytelling
Well,
panels.
just there's two scenes in this issue that are like that, which is like what I call fake suspense, where it's like there's this big action scene about to happen, and then they just decide to do nothing with it. That's one of them, where he's like he just lifts it up and then puts it back down for no reason, other than a display of his power, because Magneto is all about the power.
Loves the power.
Excuse me. So, then he goes and destroys Cerebro because it keeps beeping because he's nearby, and the thing is, it's an alarm that goes off whenever evil mutants are by. So I guess if you're an evil mutant and you're living there now, that would be really annoying. That
it would have to be.
The alarm is constantly sounding. So he destroys it. I mean, I can't really blame him for that one. And then he sees that Angel, a.k.a. Warren Worthington III, his parents show up, and we then catch up to where the previous scene left off. The parents show up, Magneto greets them, and then he uses his ill-defined magnetic attraction power, and he's able to hypnotize them.
Yep.
And send them up to a bedroom where they'll go to sleep.
Yep.
Where he'll save them for later.
It's a good sequence.
Yeah.
It has
It's some kind of sequence.
Precedent in previous issues. It does not.
Right.
And it is entertaining and fun.
Yes.
It is not.
It is not.
It's not actually a good sequence.
So we go back to the hospital. Iceman is like delirious and talking in his sleep. He's just getting worse. They think he's going to die. Fortunately, a mysterious group of people just only referred to as they've worked round the clock to complete this special laser needle, this laser-induced hypodermic, which is like this giant laser gun that this doctor is going to use to shoot a needle into Iceman. And it works. They give him the what do they call it? The medicine. They have a name. They have a name for it.
Some kind of new treatment.
Yeah.
It's sciencey sounding.
But it's a specific name because it sounds like sulfur. It's like sulfa or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, sulfa. It is sulfa. Yeah. Take a chance and apply the new sulfa drug, which sulfur. That's the opposite of ice. So they successfully inject him with the new sulfa drug. And then, they don't know if it's going to help him or not. They just have to let him wait and pray that it works. And then we cut to Professor X, and he uses his ill-defined powers to free himself from the mental wave distorter that Magneto fastened to his scalp to, I guess, dampen or negate his powers. But then Professor X is able to use his powers to destroy it and block it. And then, since he's free from the thing that was supposed to block his powers, he is able to wake up all the X-Men using his telepathic powers. And then they sort of bemoan the fact that there's nothing they can do in the gondola. Like, they don't... How is Magneto back? We don't know. We're dead. We can't get out of this thing. Our powers won't work. And then
There's a hopeless tone to Professor X's words,
yes,
as Beast says.
Yes. And then we cut back to Magneto, and he's able to use his magnetic powers combined with Professor X in Professor X's lab. He's able to just cobble together a bunch of spare parts using his powers to create a mutant birthing machine. I guess it's sort of like a cloning machine, but it's not, because then he's able to also use his ill-defined magnetic powers to... Hang on, I want to read this correctly.
It's incredible.
He shall secretly analyze their body cells and duplicate them. So he has Warren Worthington III's parents trapped. And knowing that they gave birth to a mutant, he's going to analyze their body cells and then duplicate them and create additional mutants. I'm not exactly sure how that
elementary
works.
science.
It's elementary, yeah. Okay.
You use your magnet powers to make
I was going
robot-looking thing, and it analyzes the sleeping parents of one of the X-Men and makes mutant clones.
All right. I was going to wait until the end of the plot synopsis to say this, but the science in these issues makes the previous Sentinel issues look like freaking Isaac Asimov. All right?
This really is like some next level Venture Brothers
It's
stuff.
just like incredible. Yes. And like he's got like there's like a little window. He like the machine is like peeking through this hole in the wall. Like he creates this. There's like a slide door where they're sleeping in the bedroom. And
how did that get there?
Yeah.
What? I thought this was a school.
I know. There's this little peep window in the bedroom.
It's real weird.
And then my actual favorite line of dialogue from this issue is Magneto's talking about how this new device is going to create mutants. It's going to create mutants. And then my favorite line of dialogue is, by means of this selector panel, I can even control the type of mutation I desire. Specifically the phrase, by means of this selector panel. He says that later on in this issue. like referring to that. It's such awkward dialogue. It's weird wording.
Yeah.
But so he creates this machine sort of randomly, and it even has like perfect interface and like fully marked switches and labels, and he can.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah, the control panels are perfect. The UI is all programmed in there.
Exactly.
Ease of use is just phenomenal.
Yeah, like it came right off the factory floor.
Right.
And he's going to create custom-built mutants from the Angel's parents by analyzing their body cells. Okay, so then we cut to the X-Men in the gondola, and they're still uncertain what they're going to do. But Professor X has his mental powers, so he's going to wake up Bobby, Iceman, in the hospital, and despite the fact that he's like on his deathbed, they're going to convince him to come and save them. And then we get the wonderful flashback. Professor X also is able to scan Magneto's thoughts to tell us all the story of how Professor X escaped from the Stranger, which you will recall in, what was it, issue 11, I believe. It's a very memorable issue. Stan Lee assured me in the little editor's box. He said it was the unforgettable issue 11.
Right, it was before the Juggernaut issue.
Yeah, that's right. So it was issue 11. I was guessing, but no, you're right. It was 11 because it was before Juggernaut. That's how unforgettable it was. And that was the great story that we did not think too highly of, where Magneto gets captured by a supreme alien being for seemingly no reason, takes him into space to study mutants.
Toad too.
Yeah, also Toad. Yeah, which actually inadvertently is also my favorite panel in this issue. So we see Magneto stranded on this deserted planet. The Stranger left. He doesn't care. They're free to roam at will because the planet is empty, so the planet is their own prison. But Magneto goes to a spaceship's graveyard. And that dang old Stranger, he underestimated the power of Magneto. And Magneto is able to use his magnetic powers to cobble together a spaceship, I guess, or get into a spaceship that already works. I can't really tell.
You'd think an omnipotent cosmic being would have seen this coming. I guess not.
He's omnipotent, not omniscient, Alex.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
He's real powerful. He's not real smart.
Exactly. Think about it. He doesn't know anything. That's why he's studying mutants. He don't know crap.
That's a good point.
And he's obviously a freaking moron. Because he just leaves all these functional spaceships lying around on his deserted prison planet. But so we get a great scene where Magneto gets into the spaceship and Toad is sucking up to him and all happy that they're going to escape. And then Magneto just kicks Toad off the ladder to the spaceship.
That's a good panel.
It's a great panel.
So dumb.
He doesn't care about Toad, leaves him on the planet, and Magneto just blasts back to Earth. And that's how he got back to Earth. So then, Professor X, again, they're trying to figure out how to escape the gondola. They've able to successfully use Marvel Girl's telekinetic powers to prevent it from going any higher into the stratosphere, but they can't lower it. So, Iceman goes to the mansion. He kind of watches Magneto work his mutant creating device. And then we get to that scene, that other scene I said, which is like the false suspense, where Iceman is on an ice ladder, and he's watching Magneto and kind of figuring out what he's doing. But then he loses his balance, and the ladder falls over and crashes, and it looks like Iceman's about to fall too, but he's able to create an ice lasso and catch onto the building and save himself. And it's this big suspenseful moment, and nobody notices. Magneto doesn't even care. The the narration in the panel is that Magneto is so confident of his own security, so wrapped up in his incredible experimentation, that he hears nothing, perceives nothing, save what occurs within the walls of his laboratory. Well, I'm really glad to read that, because for a minute I was worried that Iceman was going to give away his position, but he's not. Everything's fine. Just,
as it turns out.
Yeah. And so Magneto starts working his mutant creation device, and he's like, it's like a factory floor. Like again, this is like there's all this infrastructure here to like glass tubes to create bodies.
Yeah.
And they're slowly being created, I guess. It's strange. And
classic cloning tube.
Classic cloning tube. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. We're looking at clone tubes. And then Iceman decides he's going to come in and distract Magneto, because that's all he has to do. Professor X says he's figured out a way to get them out of here, but they need to distract Magneto. So Iceman kind of gets into a little fight with him, and it's another embarrassingly comical panel of Magneto like tripping over himself as he slides down an ice tunnel. Yeah, exactly.
Yuck.
Exactly. And then, just as he's done playing games with the stupid little teenager Iceman, and he's going to wallop him, we cut back to Professor X in the gondola, and they figure out a way to get out. Cyclops is going to shoot his laser beam into the balloon and let all the gas escape so that they come rocketing to Earth. And then Marvel Girl will use her powers to stop it just in time before they crash. Wow.
Seems like a fairly straightforward way to use their powers to get back.
Why did they need Iceman to distract Magneto for that? Like, couldn't they have done that like an hour ago?
Well, it sets it up like they couldn't, because that would be too hard for Marvel Girl or something.
They specifically already said that they couldn't do that, and then they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a letdown.
Mm.
And then just before Magneto can destroy Iceman, the X-Men show up and start fighting him, and the fight goes on for a few pages, but then it's all stopped by Professor X's brilliant plan to call down the Deus Ex Machina. Professor
that crazy stranger's back.
That old stranger, which I gotta admit is an awesome panel.
He's got like this little cat body.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like a Chinese mythical figure, like flying through the air, like a Chinese dragon.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, but he's through space.
Yeah.
Professor X is successfully able to send all of his thoughts out into the infinite vastness of space, and eventually find the stranger and let him know that Magneto escaped and is bothering them. So the stranger comes rocketing back to Earth. And then, in what is possibly the dumbest line of dialogue in any of these X-Men issues, Cyclops is trying to describe what's happening.
Yeah.
And Cyclops says, Magneto's Magna car was nearby. He's gone. What?
Why?
Magneto's Magna car? That was never shown in the art ever. Like,
you can't just casually drop Magna car. I need to know about that.
I want to see Magneto's Magna car.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we just see the energy shapes of them leaving. And actually, what's even worse is that, and we'll get into this when we kind of talk about the disconnect between what was intended in the art and what's in the script.
Hmm.
What's stated in the text is that Magneto saw the stranger coming for him and hopped in his hot rod and sped away into space
Hmm.
like he's driving a flying car or something. I don't know, because all we see is the red energy lines of him like zipping away, and then we see
Yeah.
the blue energy lines of the stranger kind of congruent with it, like flying off in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
But the dialogue is Magneto's running away. And the stranger's chasing him. Oh, I wonder if we'll ever know what happens to him. Gosh,
That Magnecar must be really
that
fast.
must be some bitchin' Camaro Magnecar that he has.
And if this god being could actually zip across the universe within a few moments, it's pretty cool that it could turn into a car chase.
Right. He's got a souped-up Magnecar. It's got a V8 engine and like hover wheels and a spoiler on the back for good measure.
I hope so.
It's,
Purple spoiler.
oh my god. But the issue's not over. Magneto runs away and the stranger chases after him, but the X-Men have to quickly get back into the mansion because all these mutant freaks are about to get created out of nowhere. These mindless weirdos that Magneto was going to create as his army of mutants, and they don't know how to stop it, and they're all running for the lever, but then it all gets stopped unexpectedly. They all disappear because Iceman had a simple plan to just go and move Angel's parents out of the way of the machine so that it would stop working on them. I don't know.
That is a pretty silly sequence
It's
where they're all reaching for the lever, and then you get the
it's bad.
very, very old-fashioned, hokey
Ugh.
conclusion.
Yeah, and this is all in the final page, and then
Yep.
we immediately cut to the next panel of Angel's parents waking up, and it's also I just want to note that they're wearing their pajamas, like
Uh-huh.
like she's wearing a nightie and he's in his pajamas, and like they didn't bring pajamas to the school.
They were just gonna. That's an interesting catch there.
They were just
They were
there
just
to
gonna
visit.
stop in for like an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
That was stated earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Magneto's mind control came up with everything.
he did. He had pajamas in the closet, in the linen
Yeah.
closet. And so they wake up and they don't remember what happened. It's almost as if they're something erased part of their memory. Oh gosh. And they go down for a nice dinner with the Professor Xavier and his students, not the X-Men.
Yeah.
And it's a very nice, pleasant experience. Angel's happy to see them, and everybody's happy. And then we get that panel teasing for the next issue. It's not even I miss the goofy smiling close up of Professor Xavier, like this.
Well, I mean, you do get a final
You get that, but
60s dinner scene.
yeah.
Buddy hucking it up around the table.
Yeah, Norman Rockwell style.
So wholesome.
But no, the final panel is just a bunch of text advertising the next issue. A new type of foe, a new type of story, a new type of action. But the same old Marvel magic. Enough said.
Enough said.
Not even any art to tease it, just
Yeah.
a bunch of promises. Empty promises, if you ask me.
New.
Also, no Jack Kirby, so I guess technically it is new, because
That's true.
yeah.
No, this is
the final.
the last layout issue.
Yeah, last thing that Jack Kirby did for the X-Men, I think.
Which means we're about to be done with this,
Well,
Aaron.
All right, so I don't want to give away my opinions too quickly, but I am so glad we are done with this.
It's been a long journey. I'm ready to be done.
All right. This is our format. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
First impressions, gut reaction. What did you think of this story across these 2 issues?
Aaron, it was horrible.
Okay. So having said that, were these actually the worst 2 issues that we've read?
The Stranger issue was pretty bad.
It was bad, but it was 1 issue.
That's true. This had the audacity to drag it into
To
2
a second
issues.
issue, exactly.
I had to put up with this crap for 2 consecutive issues. I tell you, I've long considered myself an X-Men fan, but this has been trying.
This was hard. This was so hard. All of the so I gotta admit, maybe we've been spoiled a little bit because the past 5 issues, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So yeah, the past 5 issues we are actually saying are the 5 best issues up to date, except for the first issue. So
except for number 1,
yeah,
we
except
put those
for
as
number
our
1.
highest.
But so number 1 is the best, and then everything is kind of mediocre, and then
mediocre to bad.
Mediocre to bad. Yeah, you're right. Mediocre to bad, and then we get 5 issues that actually do justice to the first issue, all in a row.
Yeah.
And then we get this.
Truly horrible.
Those 5 issues are quite a spike because they're just surrounded by the most utter garbage. Because let's not forget that the Stranger issue is the issue before the Juggernaut issue. So it literally is the worst issue we've ever read, followed by the best issues we've ever read, followed by the worst issues we've ever read, because these are worse than 11. So they're actually, it's just worst, best, worst.
Well, it's double 11.
It's double 11. Yeah.
Right.
It's so bad.
Yeah. I mean, Magneto became such an important villain.
Isn't it
And he's so unbearable in these early issues.
He's so awful. It makes you appreciate Chris Claremont so much. Really.
Right.
On an unbelievable level. The fact that he was able to turn around this character of Magneto and make him into one of the greatest villains of all time.
Right.
Holy cow.
You really wonder if it was like a dare, they're sitting around and they're like, Claremont, you're gonna try your hand at the X-Men.
Right. Their main
try and
villain
use Magneto,
sucks.
make him not garbage.
Exactly, make him not an idiot. I dare you. And then he did it.
He did it. Totally changed it around.
Wow. And
wow.
Wowie, wow. And it's just all the more shocking because again, I'm just going to keep saying this. There was a little bit of a roll going there. Juggernaut, I would say.
No, there was.
I would say previously.
There were suspenseful issues and thoughtful issues and issues that were actually touching on a lot of the kind of weighty X-Men themes that would, define the franchise. And then this.
Woof. You could tell Jack Kirby was out the door and didn't care too much. I mean, I don't want to put that entirely on Jack Kirby. Maybe Jack Kirby's vision for Magneto just really wasn't that great.
Maybe.
I mean, to be fair, we've disliked we've disliked all of the Magneto stories almost.
Except for one.
Except for issue 1, we loved issue 1, but Magneto's not much of a character in that.
Yeah, that's a good point. There was the first attempt at a 2-parter.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Those issues, I think those were 5 and 6, or 4 and 5 maybe.
One on there.
We liked those issues despite problems with them, and I actually think that if we went back and evaluated all of the issues in conjunction, those would end up pretty high on the list. We probably, I don't want to say we undervalued them because I don't remember. I don't actually remember what we gave them. We probably ended up giving them a 3.5 maybe, which is probably fair. But those issues were good because that was the first introduction to the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. The dynamic between Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch and Magneto was good.
Right, it wasn't burned out yet.
Exactly. In the first story, it's good. In every subsequent story, it's just tedious. But that first 2-parter was good. We saw Asteroid M.
Yeah.
You know, like
And
after reading these 2 issues, I think back on those issues so fondly.
right.
You know,
After these 2 issues, those issues are gold.
yeah, solid gold. And,
That's a good point.
yeah.
So Magneto isn't wretched in every appearance.
Right.
Those were pretty deep.
Those issues still had the problem of like Magneto. He was still like a cartoonish Scooby-Doo villain, where
Right.
he
would be like, I've got an attack, it would fail, and then he'd
run
go
away.
running away.
Yeah, like literally running away, like not
Right.
like Scooby-Doo run cycle animation, run away.
Right.
And so like that was hokey, but there was still like enough entertainment there, and it wasn't just confusing and awful.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if I can describe how awful these 2 issues are. Like they're so bad.
Like, did you even find them like campy or kitschy?
No, I didn't.
Like I wasn't even thinking that way at this point.
No, that's the thing. Is like, again, maybe it's not fair because the previous 5 issues we really enjoyed, and even because we got really into them, even the kitschiness we were able to we got into some of the kitschiness. Like we talked about the Sentinels, and your favorite line from the Sentinels was this Master Mold narrating Beast's life story. And,
right.
And it's like that's so
continue after your high school medals.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like stupid but fun, you know, because it's in service to a real story that means something. This is nothing, and it's not fun, and it's just awful. Like it's dull and tedious, and all this fake suspense. Like I said, I pointed out specifically those 2 scenes where it's like action in service to nothing. Like none of it means anything, and then it's all wiped away by Deus Ex Machina. They just call back the Stranger, and maybe we'll find out what happens to him in the future. My God,
no explanation. Yeah,
I mean we didn't like the Stranger issue. We didn't like the way Magneto was just unceremoniously whisked away, and their greatest main villain was defeated by an outside unbeatable cosmic force that they had nothing to do with.
Right.
And then Magneto shows up through equally stupid means, and then is also still defeated by the same stupid means. Like it's so insulting. It is insulting to the kids that would have read this. You know, the dumb 10-year-old kids from 1965 that read this should have been insulted.
Right.
It's awful.
It's just it's so all over the place. It's hard to. None of it has any sense of meaning or hierarchy or.
Yeah.
I'm looking back at the sequence where they first arrive where Beast and Marvel Girl arrive at the mansion.
Yeah, yeah.
And the entire mansion is this frictionless surface.
Yeah, what is up with that?
Like, is that
a trap that he set?
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's not even like fun or exciting because it's like it's so jarring. It almost feels like the artist just didn't want to draw furniture in the house, so Stan Lee wrote words to justify I mean, I think there was more to it than that, but
that's what it feels like. Yeah.
There's just no sense of this matters, this has a purpose, it's just meaningless pictures.
Yeah. Exactly. It's all disconnected, meaningless pictures. The X-Men are easily defeated and then easily escape their trap. The stakes, and this is what's so maybe this kind of helps fuel the rage, is the disconnect between what is shown in the art and what is being told to you in the text. Because Stan Lee is laying it on so thick in the text about how this is the most dangerous thing they've ever faced. And Magneto doesn't shut up about his ultimate power, and he's so obsessed with how powerful he is.
Mm-hmm.
And the X-Men are in dire straits. You know, they're never going to get out of this ultimate trap. Which, again, I couldn't help thinking of the Austin Powers joke. Right? Like, why are you...
You got a gun? We could just shoot him.
You got a time machine? Just go back in time and kill him when he's on the toilet. Like,
right.
Why put him in a gondola and send him up into space? You knocked them all out. You hate them. Use your magnetic powers to just choke the life out of them. I don't get like there wasn't even lip service paid to why he was going through the elaborate trap to kill them. Like he wanted to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's been shown that he has wanted to kill them in combat before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he'll fight them and try to kill them, and then he'll fail and run away. And then he has them all at his will, and then he puts them in this like elaborate stupid trap for no reason. Like there's no, like I said, there's not even lip service paid where he's like, I'm going to leave you alive just long enough so that you can witness this other terrible thing, and then they escape, or even like I want you to die in the same way that you tortured me, and that's why I'm putting you through these
Send
phases.
you to another world.
Exactly. You know,
whatever.
there's nothing like that. Like he's just,
Right.
I have a plan. You're gonna suffocate in the stratosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Take that, X-Men.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because it's, I mean, like, so we really liked the Juggernaut issues, and the Juggernaut's motivations are really simple, but there's this really strong sense of dread and fearsomeness. Like this guy who's crazy strong is coming here to destroy us, and it's a battle of attrition. It's a fight to keep standing until we can figure out how to stop him.
Yeah.
And it feels scary because it feels like he's on the verge of doing that. Like you got scenes where like Beast and Angel are like clawing along the floor because their legs have been taken out of commission.
Yeah.
And you get the feeling like if Juggernaut got to them, he'd just smash them.
He would just kill them, like flatten them
Right.
like a bug.
It's very simple, but it works, and it creates suspense, and you turn the page because you're like, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
This is like the total opposite of that.
The complete opposite. They're like falling in voidless space from some trap, like a window drops in the room, and they don't know what to do, and then they get knocked out by sleep gas. It's the complete opposite of suspense. That's so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so
It's so.
I wonder how long we should talk about how bad this is.
Okay. I don't know if I have anything else to say about these two issues. They're just god awful. I'm saying it right now. These are the worst two. Worse than the Blob issue. The Blob issue was could at least have some kitschy fun. We talked about that. Worse than the Vanisher issue even, because at least Vanisher was issue number 2, and they were still kind of figuring out what the X-Men were. This is issue 18. They've been doing this for like 3 years. They should have this figured out by now.
You think? We could talk about the really weird potential subtext of Angel's parents getting scanned by this thing to make mutant babies while Magneto watches through a secret window. It's really weird.
His little peep window where he's gonna watch them make babies.
It's so strange.
It's weird. I mean, okay. I guess maybe there's a little bit of kitsch value to be gleaned from those panels.
From those panels.
Well, just everything about that machine, where Magneto just like creates it out of spare parts in Professor X's lab, just like, and then he puts, he's like, there's that panel of him like in the window looking, like you see the room and Angel's parents are in the beds and the machine's over them, and you just see Magneto's head in like the window looking at them.
So weird. Page 7.
It's pretty good. But
so there's that.
that might actually be it. That really might actually be it, because all the stuff with the X-Men in the gondola is just awful. It's not just awful; it's boring.
Yeah.
You know, like there's no visual to it. You know, there's no sense of where they are, what's going on. There's like, you get these few panels outside the gondola where you can kind of see like the curve of the Earth. And I get the sense that they're trying to imply this hopeless sense of like, even the X-Men can't survive a fall through the atmosphere, you know. But it's just done so poorly. Just awful.
Real bad. I mean, Jack Kirby roughed out these pages.
Yeah, he did.
So he came up with this gondola. He must have been totally checked out.
I have to
like,
assume.
I'm over it. I don't care.
Especially after I'm going to keep going back to this, especially after the last 5 issues, which were
Right.
all so good.
Mhm.
And even we talked about the Sentinel story, how it's 3 issues long and it's kind of overwritten, and it probably could have only been 2 issues. But even like all those like endless action sequences, those were at least exciting. Like
Mhm.
there was something going on. There was a sense of they had to escape this big thing. There is
Mhm.
just no tension in this stupid gondola,
Mhm. It's
and
dumb.
it's so bad. And I just have to assume that Jack Kirby was checked out, or I mean, I don't want to be too generous to Jack. It's not like every idea Jack ever had was great. Jack did a
Right.
lot of dumb stuff too,
Right.
but
And
when
he
he
was
was
creating a lot of
and he
stuff.
was doing a lot of stuff. He was still doing the Fantastic Four at this time, so
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't want to like I don't want to sound like I'm sucking up to him too much. I mean, maybe this was just his idea and he just really didn't put much thought into it. That's fine. It's still bad. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm blaming everyone on this one.
He doesn't get a pass here.
No, no. If this was Jack's idea, then it's terrible. Just I can only hope. Maybe that's how I should phrase it. I can only hope that he knew because the whole thing with him being the layout artist and bringing in another artist to be the penciler, it was supposed to be a transitory phase, like
Mhm.
a It was supposed to. It was meant
Tran-
transitory. Yeah, is that right? It was
I
meant.
guess so.
It's meant to
Transitional.
transitional is actually probably what I meant to say.
Yeah.
It's a transitional phase. It was meant to be the period where Jack teaches the new artist how to create comics for Stan Lee.
Okay.
And so you would have Jack doing the layouts and saying, "This is our idea for this issue. Here's how I'm going to lay it out. This is you draw it over this.
Mhm.
Make comics like this in the future." So that's where we're at with these 2 issues. It is and this is the point where they're like, okay, Jack's done. New artist, Jay Gavin, who, by the way, I don't think we've said this before. Jay Gavin is actually a pseudonym for
Okay.
a comic book artist by the name of Werner Roth,
Okay.
and he was
Did not know
working
that.
he was working for DC Comics at the time, and so he used the pseudonym Jay Gavin so that he could draw comics for Marvel without his editors at DC knowing.
Okay.
that's
Interesting.
that's all that is pretty much.
Fun fact.
Yeah, just a fun
Yeah.
little fact. Uh, Jay Gavin is just a pseudonym for Werner Roth.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
I guess since we're on the subject, let's talk a little bit about Werner Roth. Um,
Okay.
I haven't read any other comics of his other than these X-Men issues, and
Hmm.
we kind of touched on this in the last episode, but like I don't, I'm not particularly moved by his work on the X-Men.
Hmm.
While acknowledging that I think he's a perfectly competent artist,
Mhm.
I think I mentioned this in the last episode. In some ways, he's probably more technically correct than Jack Kirby, but he just doesn't bring that spark to it the way Kirby does.
Yeah, it's not as stylized as Kirby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's got a very clean style. It tells the story,
Hmm.
but it doesn't have the same punch.
Yeah, that's really all I can say about it. Like,
Yeah. Eh.
yeah. So I don't know. I mean, what else you got for these 2 issues, Alex?
I don't know, man. I mean, it has that problem too of like none of the characters really. I mean, I guess Iceman. Okay, so this is kind of Iceman's issue when he finally comes to,
Yeah,
or
kind
I
of.
guess issue 18,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When he finally comes to, you get Iceman a little more focus on just him doing some cool stuff, I guess. But even that it's so not cool.
It's just
Like,
stupid.
I thought like briefly like he gets up and it's like up to him, and I thought, oh, this will be kind of neat. Like we get like a Iceman stops being a boy, does the manly thing,
Yeah, yeah.
gives it his all, and it just turns into him quickly getting captured and stalling for time.
Exactly.
Which
he doesn't
is
even.
just not that interesting.
I mean, I guess he sort of does something clever by creating the ice tunnel that Magneto slips into. Like that's meant to be him sort of outsmarting Magneto, him using his powers. But I wasn't too not too impressed by that. But maybe it's because I don't like seeing comical pictures of Magneto like tripping over himself. Like, that's your villain? This guy that's like tripping over his own cape?
Yeah, they really do make him the Saturday morning villain pretty hard in most of these issues. Like
Yeah.
he's an imbecile.
Yeah, he's an idiot. And this whole issue, he was complaining about how all the times he's been beaten before is because he had a bunch of idiot supporters that were too stupid and incompetent and too weak, and so now he's just going to go it alone and he'll survive and he'll win because he's the best and the strongest and the most powerful. And then he still slips on the ice and goes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with what you said earlier too, that being a kids comic, kids don't get a pass. Like
Yeah.
I remember when I was 10. I remember when I thought, fights were exciting and dramatic, and when I thought, this is dumb, this is pandering.
Yeah.
This is offensive to me.
Even kids think that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this feels that way.
I remember watching Dragon Ball Z and being like, this is going on a little long.
Child though I was, it started to feel like I was being manipulated.
Right.
Yeah, kids catch on to these things.
And I think the biggest sin for these issues, and I really don't have much else to say other than this, but the biggest problem with these two issues is like, there's no fun character moments for anybody in these issues.
No, there's not.
And we've talked about that in previous issues that we thought were really weak. Like, for example, the Lucifer issue, which was just stupid beyond all get out. But at least it had those like character moments between Cyclops and Marvel Girl that were actually in the art, not just in thought bubbles crammed into the panel. Like, it was actually a scene of the characters kind of interacting with each other, and that was charming, or that had some value.
Yeah, it adds a layer of interest.
Yeah,
makes you like the characters that are supposed to be the heroes.
Yeah, there is.
Like you said, this is really boring.
It's none of that in this issue. In these two issues, they're so boring. There's just like no characters, no interesting story, no believable tension, no nothing, just nothing. Jack Kirby should have quit with issue 16, gone out on a bang. But I mean,
left on a high note.
I'm not going to blame that on him, though. Guy needs a paycheck. Stan Lee ultimately is the editor. He's the one who should have been. He's the one calling the shots on what's going on here. Just awful, awful, awful issues. That's all I could say about it. Alex, you got anything else? I don't know.
No. I'm glad we're.
I don't want to go through it and nitpick it anymore. I feel like we've already. Everything would be a variation of what we said. Just awful.
I think we're good.
Okay. How many Magneto hypnotic eyes do you give this issue? Because I'm just saying it right now. I can't give it more than a 1.
Yeah, I'll give it a half.
A half, yeah.
Give it a half.
I'll give it a half just for that panel of Magneto peeping through the window at Angel's parents. That's all it gets. These 2 issues, that's all they get.
Sure. Our patience is shot.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any grace points anymore.
Nothing. Yeah, no.
It's a half star for a really weird panel.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the only joy this comic gave me was the unintentional weirdness.
Yeah. 18 issues in. I feel like the X-Men I feel like they had it figured out, and then I don't know what was going on with this. But you know, okay. I said I wasn't going to say anything else, but
I'm gonna give you like 5 more minutes.
Okay.
I'm gonna say
it just felt like boring continuity junk too, because it was all like they came up, they had a stupid story for why Magneto was gone, then they had to come up with stupid reasons why he was back because they wanted to bring him back for no other reason than to bring him back because continuity, because he's the villain. So it's just creating layers of continuity, but it's not actually a story that's about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I find so insulting about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like layering stupid continuity for no reason other than to perpetuate continuity. And that's what bothers me even more.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Okay, that's all I got.
All right.
Okay,
well.
we're officially done. Half a star, bada bing, bada boom. We're done with the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby issues. I think there's we have some plans for the future of Comic DNA as a podcast and possibly sort of a YouTube show. We're not going to get too deep into it right here, but Alex and I have kind of been talking, and I have also been doing a lot of talking to myself without Alex involved. I mean, I do that regularly, yeah. But in this case, I've been specifically talking to myself about Comic DNA. So we've got some ideas. We're gonna do. I mean, we're gonna keep doing more long form comic book discussions because that's just who we are. That's what we do, Alex. I think you'll never be able to escape it for the rest of your life.
No.
So we're gonna do that. But we are going to put the X-Men to rest for a little while. I think it's been like a little over a year.
Something like that.
And we have
need to get back into some graphic novels here and there.
Exactly. Yeah, we're gonna dump into a little bit more highbrow stuff. Remember.
Maybe some Youngblood and Spawn.
we can sprinkle. Yeah, we can sprinkle some of that in there. But we'll be talking about some other stuff. But maybe like I brought up the possibility at the beginning of the episode of doing like a retrospective episode.
Yeah.
I think that'd be important. A more general discussion about these issues. We'll do that next.
Summation.
Yeah, in summation. And it'll be in the sort of new format that I've been playing around with.
Yeah.
The future of this podcast.
All right.
That's all I'm going to tease about that.
It's going to be wild.
Yeah, it'll be fun. But until then, my name is Aaron Walther. You can find me on Facebook, Aaron Walther on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I admit I don't use Twitter that much. I apologize. I got nothing. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. But I am on Twitter at AA Walther on Twitter. If you send me direct messages, I'll respond to them. But I don't post a whole lot. But I try to post more on there. You can read comics that I write at. I read a comic called American Chop Suey that's on Go Comics right now. If you go to Go Comics and search for American Chop Suey, you can find that comic illustrated by my good friend Ed Bickford. And I also write a comic called The Uncontrollable Reclass. That's at I think they changed the name of the website now. It's tapas tapas.com.org. I'm really bad at promoting myself. I'm throwing that out there right now. You can.
The Incredible Reclass?
Yeah, Uncontrollable Reclass. I decided to pick the most awkward adjective ever. But Uncontrollable Reclass. You can probably Google it or find me on Facebook. I don't know. I'm sorry. When the book is all finished, I'll print it and I'll have a more easily available, ready to read version. But it used to be Tapastic, and now I think it's just Tapas. Tapas. I feel weird saying that. I don't get it.
Not to be confused with Spanish small meals.
Yeah, tapas. Yeah. It's probably better to say tapas than tapas. That's if you go to a website that asks for your credit card information, you're on the wrong website. That's all I'll tell you.
Fair enough.
But, so I got some comics out there. I got some other stuff I'm working on. But I don't know. Oh, and you can download MP3s of this podcast at comicdna.podbean.com. Okay, I think that's about it. Alex, I know you got nothing to say, so
Nope.
thank you for finally finishing these X-Men issues, and we will see everybody next time.